Electric cars, well, they're just too expensive. Yeah, the new ones can be pretty pricey at the top of the market, but things are changing slowly. So what about buying a used or second-hand EV? Is it a good idea? What should you look out for? And spoiler alert, yeah, you should definitely buy a used EV. Stick around to the end when I'll pick out some of my favourite used EVs. Welcome to the channel. My name is Martin Lee, and if you like what we do here, hit subscribe and the bell icon so you never miss a show. Okay, let's kick things off with price, because let's face it, that's the main reason that you might be thinking about buying a used EV, isn't it? But beware. Just because you're buying a used EV doesn't mean it's going to be cheap as chips. The issue here is that there's so much demand and so little supply of EVs. Think about it like a funnel. There are so few new EVs coming into the top of the funnel that by the time they come out ready for the used market, there's not as many of them, and therefore market prices keep them higher. There are so many stories of people buying a Tesla Model 3, driving it for a few months, even years, and selling it for more than they bought it for. So do your sums, get out the pen and paper, get the spreadsheet open, whatever you want to do, but work out how much you'll save on fuel, on maintenance compared to driving maybe an old combustion car. You might get a very pleasant surprise, and the extra bit of money that you spend up front may well pay itself back very quickly. Let's talk about reliability, and I have some good news for you here. You know all those stories that you've heard of batteries being replaced for tens of thousands of dollars after just a couple of years? Yeah, they're all nonsense. Normally planted in the press by people who want to spread a different message. That's all I'll say. If you want to know more about that, then check out our other videos on EV batteries. They are incredibly reliable. The reliability and health of EV batteries is excellent. Now, look, I'm not saying that some of those really early Nissan Leafs are starting to struggle at this stage. Yes, there are some in some very hot climates around the world because of the lack of certain cooling on those batteries that maybe they've degraded faster than their owners would like. But there are models that have been out for 10 years now, still in daily service. We'll touch on battery health again in a minute, so stay tuned. But suffice to say, the EV batteries are very reliable, and that extends to the rest of the car as well. You see, EVs are relatively simple compared to assembling thousands of parts into a big oily engine. There's far fewer moving parts and far less to go wrong. There's no fan belt, timing belt, spark plug, catalytic converter. The list is almost endless. So EVs break down less and require less maintenance. Let's go back to batteries again for a moment though. There's more to say about this. They do degrade over time, there's no doubt about that. But the rate that they do is pretty small. Expect the modern EV to hold over 90% of their battery health after 100,000 miles. In fact, the battery will most likely outlast the life of the vehicle itself. I have a friend that's just done 100,000 miles in their Tesla Model 3, and they've driven that car hard. They road trip it a lot, and it's lost between 9 and 11% of its battery. But you might want to be a bit more careful when buying a used EV. For example, if you're looking for something that's 5 years or more older, then it's likely to have some degradation. A 2016 Nissan Leaf with 100,000 miles on the clock is likely to be down to something like 80%, possibly, depending on how the car has been driven and charged and treated. So do your homework here. If you're buying a car more than 2 or 3 years old, thankfully, there are ways to find out about battery health. The Nissan Leaf has a handy display on the dash that shows the battery health in 12 bars. For most cars, you can buy a small piece of kit that'll plug into the car's computer and tell you the battery health with a simple app on your mobile phone that's either free or very low cost. I won't go through all of them here, but if you're looking at a used EV, a little Google search will show you the specifics you need for that model. Another thing to look out for is battery leasing. Now, it's not common these days, but if you're looking at the likes of a Renault Zoe, many of those cars, most of them actually, had a battery lease. So you pay a small amount of money to Renault every month, and they own the battery, you own the rest of the car. And it takes off a significant portion, a chunk of what you pay for the car because, well, you're not buying the battery, it still belongs to Renault. The good news is, if anything goes wrong or it degrades, there's a problem, it's their battery, and they'll put a new one in the car. The last point on batteries is to match up your range with your needs. Think about use case, because so few people do. If you're looking at an older EV on a smaller budget, you may get a limited range on the car you buy. But what miles do you need that vehicle for? What's the use case? You might say to somebody, oh, I'm buying an EV, it's got 100 miles of range, it's a bit older. And they might look at you to be like, you can't drive a 100-mile range car. But look, an older Renault Zoe, an older Nissan Leaf, if you do 20 miles a day, you do 50 miles a day, you do 75 miles a day, you've still got plenty left in reserve for when it's very cold or an emergency detour and something like that. And look, if you do buy one of these cars that's older and cheaper, and you need to do a 1,000-mile road trip, let's just say, look, just rent a car for the weekend or that week for that road trip with all the money that you've saved from driving EV. Before you buy a used EV, make sure you know how you'll charge it. Do you have a driveway? Do you have off-road parking? Are there public chargers near you? Is there a reliable charger at work? But what's also important is that you watch out for how fast the car charges. Older Nissan Leafs, without the upgrade, can only charge at 3.5 kilowatts on AC. That's what your house uses, alternating current. So that's really, really slow. Now, the Renault Zoe can charge at 22 kilowatts on AC, but that's for 3-phase power. Do you have that at home? Almost certainly not, at least my UK audience where I am. Some European countries do, but you can't charge as fast as the car can take with your home electricity. Also, some older EVs didn't actually come with DC fast charging. That could be a deal breaker for you. It's also worth checking what charging cables come with the car. Make sure that there is at least a cable for you to hook up to an AC post on maybe a Type 1 or a Type 2 connector, and you want to have we call it a granny cable. But, a domestic charger, if you like. They're great for times when there's no dedicated charger, and it gives you that breathing room to then get a standard charger installed so you can charge it a little bit quicker. Let's look at some options. Nissan Leaf is definitely making our list of favourite used EVs. It's been around more than a decade. I love it. Hundreds of thousands of drivers have put millions of miles on that car. The original Nissan Leaf is going to have suffered some serious battery degradation. So for us, there's a sweet spot. I reckon, look around 2016, 2017, pre-refresh, most of them 30 kilowatt hour battery, about 26.5 usable. They'll suffer some degradation at between 10 and 20% at this stage. If you're looking for a car that will get you around 100 miles and do so many of your daily journeys, maybe as a second car on your driveway, highly recommended. Look out for models that have the 6.6 kilowatt onboard charger and the cold pack that preheats it. The top spec level also has some nice touches, heated seats front and rear, 360-degree camera, cruise control, keyless entry. It's a great spec car. Prices are going to vary so much all over the world, I can't, on this show, go into those details. But I'd love to know, in the comments below, if you bought one and what you paid. Next, Renault Zoe. I'm a big fan of the Renault Zoe. I've owned 2 of them myself. I've still got the second one, the ZE40, in the driveway behind me. The first one I bought was on a battery lease, and actually, because this was many, many years ago, and maybe EV pricing was a little bit fluctuating, I actually sold that car for more than I bought it for a year later. I think it's a great EV, the Renault Zoe, if you don't have off-street parking, because it's smaller than the Leaf. It's really easy to park on streets. The main thing, though, it has 22 kilowatt AC charging. So if you go to a public charging post, maybe at the supermarket or something that has 22 kilowatt AC charging, many of those posts for free, the Zoe can charge very quickly. Depending on where you live, these might be a godsend. You can easily fill them up from near empty to full in the time it takes to do a weekly shop. The Zoe is tried and tested. They're comfortable to drive, slow by today's standards, but that's not the point of this vehicle. They'll give plenty of fossil car drivers still a surprise heading away from the traffic lights. Although we love the Leaf and the Zoe, there are other good options. Older Bolts are still a very good option in the US, but really not available anywhere else. Hyundai Ioniq, the original one, not the new Ioniq 5. That original version is crazy good, efficient, and the list goes on and on. Some last bits of advice before I sign off. Figure out your deal breakers. What is it about charging? What is it about the size of the battery? What's about the range that you need? And remember, there's a passionate EV community out there in the forums or local owners associations. They'll be so happy to help you, maybe on certain online groups. Now we've made loads of videos on all aspects of the EV world, covering different types of charging, cars, what a kilowatt hour is. So go check out those in our channel and check out all of the videos we've made that might be of interest to you. We'd love to stay here for hours talking about used EVs, but not enough time. I want to hear from you now in the comments below. Have you bought a used EV? What'd you pay? If you don't mind sharing, and where are you in the world? When did you buy it? We can start to get a bit of a track on prices as well. And what did you go for? Tell me. Don't forget to like and subscribe the video so you never miss a show. And join us on Instagram. We are at @best_electric vehicle. On Facebook, we have a new group called Best Electric Vehicle. And we'll see you there. And I'll see you on the next show.